And I took my trench knife and I cut my sleeve up and I looked at it. My right arm, I usually bring my shrapnel with me that I got hit by because it went into my side and they recovered it, and I keep it on a chain, but I'm afraid of the air security now. They would probably take anything away from me if it's metal. But I cut my sleeve up and I could put 4 fingers against my exposed bones. And this little artery was hanging out and swinging, but it wasn't bleeding. For some reason, the muscles shrunk and I didn't lose a teaspoon of blood. But a medic came up. We put sulfadiazine powder in and so on. And he brought me back to the hospital. I went back to the 216th General Hospital, and there we recovered. And I was out 3 weeks from the hospital. In fact, the doctor let me pull the stitches. He showed me how to do it, and I pulled my own stitches. 3 weeks later, the arm wasn't quite healed yet. We got the word from Montgomery, and Eisenhower, we parachuted into Holland. We went into Holland, and we were supposed to be there like 2 days. That's all the paratroopers are for, the specialized troops. They go in, they take the bridges, the roads, and so on. We're supposed to be there 2 days, not over 3. And they asked him, General Horrocks of the 30 Corps asked the commander of the British, they had a new commander who really didn't know the fundamentals of paratroop warfare. And he dropped his troops 10 miles from the drop zone, deliberately. He said it was a better field. Consequently, when he put his men out, he put Colonel Frost at the head of the detail. He took one-third of his total command to guard the weapons, ammunition, and the gliders that were on his DZ, on his drop zone. Sent 2/3 of the men over towards the Arnhem Bridge. Well, Colonel Frost had to drop men off on the road and act as guards to keep that line of communication open between the DZ and the bridge. So when he got to the bridge, he only had 1/3 of his command. And he still went in the attack, and of course they never did take the bridge. And we spent 72 days in Holland when actually the war, the last of the British paratroopers came back at night during a rain, and we were in Driel at that time. I had fought all the way from Eindhoven through Zaan, through Kevering, through Veghel, to Nijmegen, all the way up into Ophousden. And I did have a machine gun set up on the dikes there, and every night the SS would come across in boats at the bend in the river next to the road, and I would have to shoot them. But we kept them back, and then they brought some tanks across the railroad trestle, and they did attack us with tanks, and we finally had to pull out of there. But anyway, we did at the very, very end of, I'm just skipping through this now, we did at the very end get into, up to the Arnhem Bridge. On the way there, we fought with, our 1 battalion fought with 2 German battalions, and we defeated them. And we took quite a few prisoners there, and that was what I called the Battle of the Apple Orchard, and in one of my books. But we went on from there and up to Driel, and then we were the ones selected to go out at night and bring the survivors back from across the Rhine River, which I didn't personally go across in the boat. Some of my comrades did, but I was on the shore and helped the men out. There was one pilot, it was a P-51 pilot, and he was shot down. And when I was helping these guys out of the boats on the Rhine River at night, and I said, "You're an American?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You got shot down?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "I had a P-51. He said, "I flew over the bridge trying to help out the 82nd Airborne." And he said, and this German raised up. He said he had a rifle. He's standing right on the shore. He said, raised up with a rifle, took a bead on me, and he touched it off, cut my gas line, and down I went. P-51 Mustang. One of the best fighters ever built. And the German took him down with this one shot. So anyway, I was giving a talk over in Fort Snelling, up north here, Minnesota. And we had about 8 speakers, and the man sitting next to me was a chaplain, 82nd Airborne. So we got to talking, and he said, yeah, he said, you know, when we took the bridge at Nijmegen, he said, I didn't have to go long because I was a chaplain. He said, but I felt that could give the last rites to the dying or the dead, and I could help the wounded. I said, well, that was pretty noble since you didn't have to go. And he said, yeah, I went. He said, we got to the other side and there were a lot of men dead. And he said, I dragged a lot of bodies out and a lot of wounded out. He said, I dragged this one man wounded, and he said he was clinging to his rifle. He said, so I was patching up his wounds, and he said, and I heard this noise, and I looked up. And he said, here comes this ME-109. So he took this paratrooper's rifle from him. He said, and I stood up, took a bead on that ME-109. I swung with him. I pulled the trigger, and down it went. This was the same story the pilot, P-51 pilot, told me. He says, I had a lot of ammunition, so he said, I flew south to north, low over the bridge, and he says, and I was going to help out the 82nd. He said, the German stood up with a rifle and shot me down. And now here's this preacher telling me, just out of instinct, he saw this ME-109 coming south to north, low over the bridge, and he raised up with a rifle, and he said, down it went. You figure it out yourself. There's not too many warplanes like a P-51 shot down by an M1 rifle, or yeah, that was an M1 rifle. But anyway, I never did tell the chaplain. I still know his name, know where he's at, and I never did tell the pilot, because that would ruin everything. But in fact, one of them I will say, prove it. But anyway, that did happen, and I thought I'd let it on to you, and you're the first people I've ever told that story to. Don't tell either one of those guys. But anyway, we spent our 72 days in Holland, and General Montgomery was a very careless man as far as his troops go. We had no, he ordered his troops, they would stand up and play their drums and sometimes their bagpipes and go on the attack, and the Germans would take them out. And we crawled up and down the ditches and lived. Some of us got killed, but then also we did not receive very good care. I had trench mouth real bad. When I would try to shave, the blood would run out of my mouth, and I could get no medical help at all. And they said, well, if you don't have a hole shot through you, you got to stay. As a consequence of that, I did lose my lower teeth. I still have my uppers, and I'm 82 years old, so I did take care of them. But because of that, and the government today will not give me any compensation for that, or any they won't give me any work on them either, and they're doing that to the guys from Iraq. They won't help them. And I know that because I've been commander of the disabled veterans in Livingston County for 12 years. They're having a hard time. One man, we just got his Purple Heart. He didn't have it for 2 years, been fighting. We helped him in Lansing with Congressman Rogers, got his Purple Heart for him. And they went further with the investigation. You probably saw it on television. It was in television, and it went to the commanding general, and they learned that he has denied over 900 Purple Hearts in his combat unit in Iraq. So you figure that out. But anyway, we stayed our full length of time in Holland, and we were relieved by a Scottish outfit, and here we were always sneaking around for 72 days, hiding in the woods, up and down ditches, shooting out of windows. But a lot of us survived. Actually, in my company, out of about 160 men, there was 38 of us left. But that was a long time. It was a war of attrition. And the war was over. It was done in 8 days. When we brought the men back from, the Frost men back from the Ridge at Arnhem, the war was done. But Montgomery would not let us go. He kept us there, and we were dwindled down gradually each day until we had 38 men left. And we finally got relieved by the Scottish troops, and believe it or not, they came up the road playing bagpipes as loud as you could hear them for 3 miles. Well, they had fun. But anyway, we were relieved by a Scottish outfit, Black Watch or something like that, and we were transported back to Montmorency-le-Grand in France. And we just got set back, like just starting to get close and we put most all our machine guns and everything into ordnance to have them fixed, because in 72 days of combat they get pretty beat up. And we were just getting starting to get some of our stuff back, and the Battle of the Bulge hit.